My wife drained our bank account while I was unconscious in a hospital bed. When I woke up, all I had left was a text from her. And $17. I came out of anesthesia to the beeping of machines and the sterile scent of disinfectant. A nurse was checking my smiling gently, asking how I felt. But I couldn't answer her. I was already reaching for my phone. I'd been unconscious for nearly 36 hours. A car accident. A delivery truck ran a red light and clipped me at an intersection near downtown San Diego. I'd suffered a fractured rib, a concussion, and a torn rotator cuff. The doctors told me later I was lucky. I was stable, alive, but something felt off. Even through the fog of painkillers and bruised bone, I knew. Call it gut instinct. Or maybe just the years of always being 2 steps ahead of the worst-case scenario. I was still groggy when I unlocked my phone and saw the message. I deserve this after everything I've done for you. No greeting. No explanation. Just that one sentence, followed by a screenshot from our joint account. Balance, $0. I didn't even blink. I stared at it for a long time, then replied with a single emoji. That was it. No confrontation. No questions. No panic. By the time they discharged me the next morning, I'd already memorized the message, the timestamp, and the transaction ID from the attached screenshot. I had no idea where she was, or what she'd done with the money, but I knew one thing for certain. She was expecting me to react. She wanted drama, chaos, begging. Instead, I sat in that stiff plastic wheelchair by the hospital entrance, waiting for the Uber I ordered myself, and made a list in my head. Step 1, secure assets. Step 2, track movement. Step 3, respond. Not emotionally, strategically. My name is Eric Langston. I'm 39 years old, logistics manager at a supply chain firm in San Diego. Nothing flashy, nothing wild. Just steady income, spreadsheets, late-night emails, and quiet weekends with my wife, Melissa. Or at least, that's what I thought we had. Melissa and I had been married for 7 years. No kids, by choice. We'd talked about it once or twice, but she said she valued freedom, travel, experience. I didn't push it. She worked remotely as a freelance marketing consultant. Flexible hours. Big clients. Or so she told me. I never really checked. I trusted her. Maybe that was my first mistake. 3 days before the accident, we'd argued. I'd asked about a $7,000 charge on our credit card, some boutique consulting firm in Miami I'd never heard of. She brushed it off. Said it was part of a new project. Said I wouldn't understand. That night, she slept in the guest room. I figured we'd cool off and talk later. There was no later. Instead, I woke up in a hospital with 2 fractured ribs, a ruined shoulder, and a drained bank account. She'd waited until I was unconscious. Vulnerable. Helpless. Then she made her move. I didn't know yet how deep the damage went. How long she'd been planning it. But one thing was clear. Melissa hadn't just left. She'd vanished, with every dollar we had. But I wasn't going to chase her. I wasn't going to call or beg or scream. No, that wasn't the plan. Because what Melissa didn't know, what she never bothered to ask, was that I'd been preparing for this kind of betrayal long before she ever sent that message. And now? Now it was my turn. My name is Eric Langston. I'm 39 years old, logistics manager at a regional supply chain firm in San Diego. I don't live in a high-rise condo. I don't wear watches that cost more than a used car. I'm the guy people don't notice. And that's exactly the way I like it. I wake up at 5:30 every morning. I make my coffee the same way I've done for years. I check inventory reports before most people hit snooze. My job is to make sure every piece of freight lands where it should, quietly, efficiently, without chaos. It's not glamorous, but I'm damn good at it. Melissa used to call me Mr. Predictable. Said it with a smirk, like dependability was a weakness. Maybe that should have been my first red flag. But when you grow up watching your dad vanish from your life at 13, you learn to value stability over flair. Melissa and I met 8 years ago. A mutual friend introduced us at a dinner party. She was bold, magnetic, the loudest voice in every room. The kind of woman who wore bright lipstick to breakfast and had opinions about everything, including how boring my job sounded. But I liked that about her. She challenged me. I thought we balanced each other out. Where I was cautious, she was impulsive. Where I planned, she improvised. It worked. Or I convinced myself it did. We got married a year after we met. Small ceremony in La Jolla. No fuss. No drama. She said she didn't want to waste money on fairy tales. That should have been my second red flag. In the beginning, things were good. We traveled, hosted dinner parties, had long talks over wine about how we'd never be one of those couples who ended up strangers. But slowly, quietly, things shifted. She stopped asking about my day. Stopped cooking, even though she used to love it. Started working late. Her laptop always open. Passwords changed. New friends I never met. Trips to Los Angeles that didn't match her calendar. I noticed. Of course I noticed. But I didn't confront her. That's not how I operate. I observe. I wait. I verify. 6 months before the accident, I opened a separate account in my name only. Just a precaution. I told myself it was for emergencies. I didn't mention it to Melissa. Just started quietly diverting 15% of my paycheck there. 3 months ago, I moved important documents, tax records, birth certificates, and my late mother's jewelry to a safety deposit box at a bank across town. Melissa thought they were still in the fireproof box in our closet. I wasn't planning for a betrayal. I was just preparing for a scenario I couldn't quite name. Something didn't feel right, and I've learned to trust that feeling. Always. What Melissa didn't realize, what she never bothered to find out, is that I don't yell when I'm hurt. I don't break things. I don't chase. I calculate. And now, she'd made her move. The next one was mine. I didn't go home straight from the hospital. That would have been reckless. I didn't know what, or who, was waiting for me. Instead, I checked into a business-class hotel near the airport under a name Melissa wouldn't recognize. Burned 3 sick days without calling my manager. I didn't know anyone explanations. Not yet. That night, lying in a bed that wasn't mine, I opened my laptop and started doing what I do best: tracking systems, verifying data, identifying movement patterns. I began with our joint account. The final withdrawal, $42,800, was routed to a personal account at a bank we didn't even use. That alone told me she'd set it up months in advance. No last-minute impulse. No heat-of-the-moment drama. Just cold, deliberate planning. I pulled up the transaction details. The recipient name? M. Reynolds. Not Melissa Langston. Not her maiden name, either. She'd used an alias. Or maybe someone else's identity. Either way, it wasn't accidental. Then I logged into our credit card portal. 23 new charges in the past 2 weeks. Designer boutiques. A $3,200 hotel stay in Las Vegas. Bottle service at a nightclub. I screenshotted everything. Compiled timestamps. Labeled folders. Created backup drives. Every digital footprint she left, I documented it. Quietly. Without emotion. At 1:14 a.m., I logged into our shared cloud account. The one she likely forgot we still had access to. Her phone had auto-sync turned on. Dozens of images from the past week flooded in. She wasn't alone. There was a man, maybe mid-30s, shaved head, sunglasses at night. The kind of guy who flexes in mirrors and drives leased sports cars. They were laughing in a rooftop bar. Champagne. Room service selfies. One photo caught my eye. Her lying across a hotel bed, holding up a middle finger, captioned, "Finally free." I stared at that one the longest. Then I saved it. This wasn't just theft. It wasn't just abandonment. It was mockery. And it made something inside me settle. Not boil. Not explode. Settle. At 2:03 a.m., I placed a freeze on our home's utilities. Changed the login credentials to our smart locks. I still own the house. The deed was in my name alone, courtesy of a VA loan I took out years before we married. Melissa never bothered asking about it. At 2:45 a.m., I used a private online tool to pull a location ping from her most recent Apple device login. She was still in Las Vegas. That meant I had at least 36 hours before she realized I wasn't coming home. Before she noticed her name had been removed from the car insurance, or that her access to our streaming services had been revoked, or that the security system had updated its permissions. I wasn't trying to punish her. Not yet. I was gathering control. Because if she wanted to play this like a game, she'd just handed the rulebook to the wrong person. The morning after I traced her to Las Vegas, I went to the bank in person. I sat across from a junior manager in a navy blazer who kept glancing at my sling. I told him I'd been in a car accident and was trying to reconcile my finances while recovering. I didn't raise my voice. Didn't mention fraud. just calmly asked for a full transaction history from all linked accounts. He hesitated. I leaned forward and slid over my ID, military discharge papers, and a notarized affidavit of sole property ownership for the house. His demeanor changed. He printed the documents. The second account, the one Melissa drained our savings into, was opened 2 months ago under Marla Reynolds. Same address as our house. Same birth date as Melissa's. Just a different name. The handwriting on the signature line was hers. Sloppy, like it had been copied from memory. I requested a fraud investigation. Not to freeze the funds. Not yet. Just to flag the activity. That was enough to start a paper trail. Back at the hotel, I uploaded every document to an encrypted cloud folder. Redundant backups. 2-factor authentication. Then I called Jeff. Jeff used to be an Army buddy, now a licensed private investigator. Quiet guy. The kind who never asks why. Just how soon. I gave him one instruction. Track her. Not confront. Not question. Just observe. Discreetly. While he worked, I turned to the house. I accessed the security system through my laptop. Still connected. Still active. I watched as the motion sensors pinged at 3 a.m. Someone checking if I'd come back. Probably her. She didn't expect silence. She expected a fight. By the next afternoon, Jeff had her location. Still in Vegas. Wind Tower Suites. He sent a photo from the lobby. Melissa, walking beside the same man from the pictures. Shopping bags. Designer shoes. Matching sunglasses. She looked smug. He looked temporary. By evening, I filed paperwork with the county clerk's office placing a hold on the property deed. No sales, refinancing, or title changes without my signature. I also removed her emergency contact status from my medical records and updated my power of attorney. Melissa wasn't just gone. She was trying to erase me on paper before she disappeared in real life. But erasure works both ways. The next day, she finally reached out again. A single message, "What did you do to the locks?" I didn't answer. She followed with, "Don't be petty. You left. I had to survive." No reply. Then came, "If you don't give me access again, I'll press charges." I muted the thread. There was nothing left to explain. I'd made my moves. Silently. Precisely. No threats. No drama. Just action. And if she thought that was the end of it, she hadn't realized yet. I was just getting started. By the end of the week, Melissa was no longer confident. The messages shifted tone from arrogant to panicked. I didn't respond to any of them. She'd started with threats. Then guilt. Then bargaining. "We should talk. Let's be adults. It doesn't have to be like this." All ignored. Silence, it turns out, is louder than rage. At the hotel, I watched her movements through Jeff's daily reports. Las Vegas to Phoenix. Then a pause. She booked a rental home under the same alias, Marla Reynolds. This time, Jeff caught a slip. She used our old wedding anniversary as her password at the rental desk. Amateur mistake. Meanwhile, the fraud report I'd initiated with the bank started working its way through internal compliance. I timed it carefully. Gave them just enough to start pulling logs without tipping her off too early. I filed a second report, this one with the IRS. Quietly flagged a suspicious transfer pattern and a mismatched taxpayer ID attached to one of our joint returns. I didn't claim wrongdoing. I just raised a question. Government systems don't move fast, but they never forget. I also contacted a real estate lawyer, explained the situation, and placed a legal hold on the property, tied directly to the fraudulent account Melissa had used to fund her escape. He said her alias, Marla Reynolds, could expose her to criminal liability if she tried to claim any spousal right while using false credentials. Perfect. Melissa still didn't know I'd seen the pictures, that I'd tracked the hotels, the shopping sprees, the man. She was still playing offense. But the thing about offense is it makes noise. It draws attention. I made my third move. I filed a digital request with the DMV, not for her license, for her plates. The car was still under my name, both title and loan. And under state law, I had the right to report it as unauthorized use. She'd taken my vehicle across state lines. Jeff confirmed she was still driving it daily. I waited until her new location was stable, Scottsdale, and reported the vehicle as taken without consent. Not stolen, just no longer authorized for use. 2 days later, Scottsdale PD impounded it from a Trader Joe's parking lot while she was inside. Jeff got it on video. Her face said everything. Later that night, another message came through. I know what you're doing. You're trying to ruin me. Still, I said nothing. But she wasn't entirely wrong. I wasn't trying to ruin her. I was just removing the illusion of safety she thought she had. Piece by piece. System by system. Because when someone tries to burn you down while you're unconscious in a hospital bed, you don't yell. You build the fire break. The night after her car got impounded, the messages stopped. No more threats. No more apologies. Just silence. That told me two things. She was either regrouping or preparing to strike back. I didn't have to wait long to find out which. 3 days later, I got a call from the HR manager at my company. She sounded nervous. Said someone had sent an anonymous complaint to corporate, alleging I'd embezzled funds through a logistics shell company. There were attached documents, fabricated invoices, a few blurred receipts. It was laughably sloppy, but HR doesn't deal in feelings. They deal in liability. She said they had to investigate. Said I'd be placed on administrative leave while it was sorted out. I didn't argue. I didn't ask who filed it. I already knew. That was Melissa's move. Discredit me. Cripple my job. Maybe get me desperate enough to call. To settle. To hand something back. Instead, I thanked the manager for informing me, logged off my work account, and drove straight to my lawyer's office. We'd prepared for this. Within 48 hours, we filed a defamation claim tied to her known alias. Attached documentation from the bank, our joint accounts, and the security footage Jeff had captured. We also submitted metadata from the anonymous email she'd sent to my job. Jeff had traced it to the IP address she used at the Scottsdale Airbnb. She was clever, but not careful. That same day, I filed for divorce. No announcement. No text. Just paperwork, signed and sealed. She would be served within the week. I expected backlash. Screaming voicemails. Desperate pleas. But what I got was worse. Nothing. That's when I realized something had shifted. She wasn't just afraid of losing money now. She was afraid of being exposed. And that's where my final lever came in. Jeff had found something buried in her recent financial activity. A PayPal transfer to a man in Henderson, Nevada. A name, Calvin Pierce. At first, I thought it was another alias. Then Jeff dug deeper. Calvin wasn't her boyfriend. He was her husband. From 8 years ago. No annulment. No divorce. Nothing official. She'd married him in Nevada, used a different name, then vanished. Which meant her marriage to me. Legally invalid. Bigamy is a felony in most states. I printed every document, every record, and dropped it on my attorney's desk. His eyes widened. He asked what I wanted to do next. I told him the truth. I wasn't chasing revenge. I was building a record. Because people like Melissa survive off secrets. They win when you fight them in the dark. So I flipped the lights on. And waited. The process server delivered the divorce papers to Melissa's Scottsdale rental at 10:18 a.m. Jeff was watching from a parked car down the block. He said she didn't open the door. Just looked through the window, eyes wide, then vanished behind the curtains. That night, she resurfaced online. Her Instagram, which she hadn't posted on in months, suddenly lit up. Photos of sunsets, spa robes, expensive cocktails. Carefully curated to look like she was thriving. Rebuilding. Healing. A message came to my phone an hour later. You'll regret doing this to me. She still didn't get it. This wasn't retaliation. It was containment. The next day, my attorney submitted an amendment to the court, a motion to nullify the marriage entirely due to pre-existing legal union. We attached the marriage certificate from Nevada, dated 2014. Melissa had used the name Emily Caldwell on that license. Same birthday. Same face. Different truth. It didn't just make our marriage invalid. It made every joint asset claim she thought she had legally impossible. No alimony. No half the house. No access to retirement accounts. Nothing. I watched the court clerk file the motion online. Silent. Methodical. Like checking off a final item in a warehouse manifest. Jeff sent word the next morning. Melissa had booked a flight to San Diego. Direct. Arriving at 6:12 p.m. That told me everything I needed to know. She was coming home. Not for reconciliation. For damage control. But she was walking into a place she no longer understood. I returned to the house that afternoon. First time since the hospital. It was cold, empty, spotless. Like a hotel room without character. I turned on every security camera. Synced live footage to my phone. Changed the access codes one final time. Then I left the front door unlocked. By the time she arrived, I was parked 2 blocks away, watching the feed. She stepped inside like she still owned the space. Moved through the living room, went straight to the office. I'd left a single manila folder on the desk. Inside, bank statements, the bigamy certificate, the court filing, a printed copy of the defamation claim, and a formal demand to cease all contact. She read for over 10 minutes. Then she sank into the chair. No screaming, no breaking things, just silence. When she left 20 minutes later, she didn't take anything with her. Not a jacket, not a bag. She didn't know it, but her access had been revoked again the moment she crossed the threshold. Locks reset. Cameras rearmed. I texted Jeff, "She's out." He replied 2 words, "Understood." Clean exit. It was done. She thought she'd come to reclaim something. Instead, she found nothing left to claim. 3 days after she stepped foot back in the house, Melissa received notice of the court's provisional ruling. The marriage was likely invalid. A hearing date was set to determine formal nullification. She had 10 days to respond. She didn't. My attorney forwarded me the court's automatic action. Since she failed to contest, the motion moved forward unchallenged. That meant she'd forfeit any remaining claim to assets she thought were hers. But the fallout didn't stop there. The bank's internal fraud team completed their review. They'd verified the alias account, matched the handwriting, confirmed the transfer activity and false identity. Her funds were frozen. $42,800 on hold. The same morning, a certified letter arrived from the IRS. They'd flagged her use of multiple Social Security numbers tied to conflicting tax records. The fraud alert I'd submitted weeks earlier triggered an identity audit. It wasn't jail time yet, but it was a foot in the door. That evening, I got a call from a blocked number. I almost let it go to voicemail, but instinct made me answer. It wasn't Melissa. It was Calvin Pierce, the husband. He didn't sound angry. He sounded tired. Said he hadn't seen her in over 5 years. Said she vanished one day after maxing out 2 of his credit cards and draining their joint savings. He'd never filed for divorce. Said he couldn't afford it after what she'd done. I asked why he was calling now. He said the IRS had contacted him. Said Melissa's recent activity reopened their old case file. He was just trying to get ahead of whatever was coming. I asked if he wanted to press charges. He said he already had. That changed everything. My lawyer filed a supplemental notice with the court. Melissa's prior husband had taken legal action. That moved my case from civil to criminal adjacent, which meant any attempt by her to re-enter the picture, publicly or privately, would trigger more than court dates. It would trigger arrest warrants. Still, I hadn't heard from her since that last night in the house. I didn't need to, because the final shift wasn't legal. It was psychological. For someone like Melissa, control was currency. Image was armor. And the second both cracked, she folded. I checked the Scottsdale Airbnb listing where she'd once stayed. It was no longer active. Her Instagram disappeared. No trace of the life she flaunted just days before. She hadn't just lost. She'd vanished. And I didn't feel triumphant. I felt finished. No celebration. No gloating. Just the sound of a door that finally stayed closed. The final paperwork came in on a Thursday. A single envelope from the county clerk's office, stamped and official. The marriage was nullified. The judge's remarks were concise. Due to active pre-existing legal marriage by the respondent, this union is considered legally invalid. Full asset rights revert to petitioner. No ceremony. No audience. Just a legal fact that ended everything. I took the envelope, placed it in my safe, and exhaled for the first time in months. Melissa didn't show up for any hearings. No lawyer filed anything on her behalf. Her bank accounts were frozen, her car impounded, her public identity splintered between aliases. Calvin's complaint was now part of a broader state investigation. Fraud, bigamy, identity misuse. The things that don't go away, even when you do. She hadn't contacted me since the house. No new numbers. No new threats. She was gone. And that, more than anything else, was what I'd wanted. Not punishment. Not headlines. Just distance. And peace. Back at the office, I was reinstated quietly. The HR case against me, Melissa's anonymous attempt to sabotage my job, was officially dismissed after our IT department traced the fabricated invoices back to her temporary email address. My manager didn't ask questions. She didn't need to. She just said, "Glad to have you back," and handed me a new badge. The team acted like nothing happened. But I saw the way they looked at me, like they'd heard just enough rumors to know something had gone down, and I'd walked through it intact. That's fine. Let them wonder. Jeff sent me a final invoice and a short message. If she resurfaces, I'll know. That was the last time we spoke. I deleted the feed access, burned the backup drives, closed out the case. There was nothing left to track. A month later, I changed the locks on the house again. Not because I had to, just because I wanted to. Then I cleared the guest room, the one she always hated, and turned it into a quiet study. Repainted the walls. Replaced every photo. Bought a chair that no one else had ever sat in. The silence was still loud at night. That part hadn't changed, but it didn't feel threatening anymore. Just empty. And emptiness, I'd learned, wasn't the enemy. It was space. Space to rebuild. Space to think. Space to be. I hadn't told anyone about Calvin. Not my coworkers. Not even my lawyer after the last filing. Some things are better left as quiet truths. Not secrets. Just unnecessary details. What mattered was this. The storm had passed, and I was still standing. Not because I fought harder, but because I never stepped into the chaos. I waited, watched, and let the weight of her own decisions bring everything down. It's been 11 months since the accident, 9 months since the text, 7 since the court order. People ask me if I'm okay, if I'm dating, if I've moved on. I just say I'm rebuilding, not starting over, not trying to find myself, just rebuilding, piece by piece, on ground I now know won't collapse beneath me. I still live in the same house, same street, same coffee shop down the block where they know my order before I speak. I kept the routines, not because I'm stuck, but because they're mine now, scrubbed clean of the shadow she left behind. I've made changes, small ones. The dining table only seats 2 now. The closets are lighter. My sleep is deeper. There's no scent of her perfume in the bathroom drawers. No reminders, just space. Sometimes I still check the cameras. Not out of fear, out of habit. The footage is always the same now. Quiet mornings, motionless nights. Peaceful, unremarkable. And I've grown to love the uneventful. I think that's what people don't understand about betrayal. It doesn't end with a bang. It echoes. In the silence after the final door closes. In the questions you stop asking because the answers no longer matter. Did she love me? Did she ever? Was any of it real? I don't know. And more importantly, I don't need to know. What I know is this. I saw her clearly at the end. And the version of her that walked back into our home that night was not someone capable of regret. Just panic. Just calculation. She didn't come back for forgiveness. She came back to see what was still salvageable. And she found nothing. That's what justice looks like sometimes. Not prison. Not headlines. Just a closed loop. A name that no longer echoes. A story that no longer controls the room when you enter it. A friend of mine asked me last week if I ever think about revenge. I told him the truth. Revenge is loud. Closure is silent. I didn't need to destroy her. I just needed to survive her. And I did. On a Sunday morning in May, I stood in my driveway with coffee in one hand and a blank to-do list in the other. No urgent emails. No noise. Just birds, breeze, and the soft creak of a fence I finally had time to fix. Peace isn't a place you find. It's what's left when everything that doesn't belong is gone. She's gone, and I'm still here. And that's more than enough. Support the channel by liking, commenting, and subscribing. I promise even more interesting stories.